And we're live. Round two, take two. So we actually tried getting this started just a second ago, but for whatever reason, the system crashed. I guess it knew the overload of information and value that was coming its way, so it just decided to dodge and shut it all down. But I'm excited for today's conversation. What I was saying in the last recording session, as we were getting started, is that I'm excited for today's talk because usually I have people on through my mutual networks and business acquaintances and people who I've known for the duration of the time that I've been in business and that we've connected or whatever else it might be. But any podcast that I do where I have a genuinely good friend on who I'm actually close with outside of business as well, and all the experiences that we have together, all the traveling and whatnot that we'll get into today, it's always more exciting. So Lewis, my man, thank you for being here. Excited to get into it today.
I'm excited to get into it too, man. Yeah, it's been a long time in the making, but we're finally getting it done.
I know we've been trying to coordinate this quite a few times now. We tried to do it a couple of weeks ago, but that turned into just a business session. We were working on some strategies and some things we're rolling out, and didn't even get around to the podcast. So I'm glad we're finally making it happen. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are or doesn't know your background, why don't we start with that? Why don't you let us know what you do, what your team does, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so obviously my name is Lewis, the founder of Boost Media Agency. So we're a public relations and podcast agency, and our specialty is working with founders who, are the face of their business, who want to sort of build their personal brand, establish themselves in the industry. And we kind of use, really powerful forms of media like podcasts, like we're doing now, and the news and media to really kind of amplify their voice in that market. And yeah, I'm also kind of working on a couple of other projects which are going to be launching the next month or two, which I'm really, really excited for. But yeah, I mean, how I got here is, like most people in business, probably not a conventional story. Like, growing up, I never was like an entrepreneur. I wasn't fucking selling lemonade in high school or anything like that. Like I just remember one thing that's always stuck with me is that like in high school and stuff, I just dreaded the thought of ever having to, put on a suit every day, do my hair, get dressed, look professional, and go to a desk. Like I was actually so scared of that, right? And it was the fear of that led the decisions that I kind of made when I, finished school and then end up going to college in America. Again, it was kind of like escaping that. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do that. And so, yeah, that kind of led me to college in America where I was playing golf. I never even had aspirations at that time to go pro. I never actually understood it, right? Like the information that I had was, oh, there's the PGA Tour. There's only 2 Australians on there. So if I'm not in the top 2 in Australia, I can never play pro, right? It wasn't until like when I was in my early 20s that I actually realized, oh, there's a European tour. There's an Asian tour. There's an Australian tour, right? There's hundreds of Australian pros around the world, right? And then I was like, some of these guys I've seen playing before. They're not even that good. And so that kind of gave me, the new kind of perspective on things. And then, yeah, I got into personal development and started really trying to go pro golf. Like that, when I finally actually understood that I was like these people, right? These people weren't gifted. They just worked hard. I was like, well, if I work hard, there's no reason why I can't have it. So that kind of time period for me from like 2016 to 2020 was probably like, when I went through that phase of just working on myself really hard and becoming that person that, was capable of achieving, something above the ordinary, right? And obviously golf didn't work out as where you probably can understand we're having this conversation, but yeah, man, it kind of led me to start my first business, which was in the event space. Like I was very fortunate with the opportunity that I had to actually do that because to wind it back a little bit, I was doing entrepreneurship at university. I didn't finish college in America. And I had an opportunity for these guys to run their small business for them, their events company. And that kind of led to, understanding what like a leads list was, how to get on the phone and call people, how to email people, because at uni, they didn't teach us anything. They were just like, create the business plan for the next Uber, which it just made business feel impossible. Because I'm like, Uber is like a 1 in a billion company. Like, how the hell am I going to do that? Business is not possible. Which why I always tell people, like, if they taught how to run a service-based business, how to do sales, how to generate leads in university, well, they probably don't want that. You and I both know the system, kind of doesn't want you to win. But yeah, that's like, I guess, the background of my story. And yeah, started Boost Media, started 2020, and here we are today.
Yeah, I love that background. And I was always fascinated by the fact that you played golf and took that to a high level. And then it was getting into personal development and self development that made you really want to commit to it. Same thing happened, for me in business. I got into self development and really bettering myself. And that made me want to commit to sales and commit to business. So we have a very similar trajectory, but just in different paths. And then you took all those same skills and just transferred them over to business. All that same work ethic, the same putting in the reps, the same continually getting better, micro steps at a time. And you took that from golf and applied it to business. So that's awesome. I don't know if I ever asked you this, but I'm just curious. As you were talking, I thought about this. How did you get into golf in the first place? What made you like golf or be drawn towards playing golf?
My dad played golf, and so I just, I'd go out and caddy for him on the weekends before I ever started. I remember he bought me a 9 iron. It was my first ever golf club, and one memory that I have, which I'll never forget, and it's testament to that because it just popped in my head. This 9 iron. I remember one day, like I didn't understand golf, and like I would just walk around and just hit a few shots, like when my dad, wasn't hitting or whatever. And this one day, I remember my dad and his friends were on the green, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way I'm going to hit this ball on the green." Like I was miles away from the green, and so I just hit this shot, and I hit it so good, and it landed straight on the green, right next to my dad. And he turns back and looks at me. He's like, "Do not ever hit when someone is on the green." And I was like, "Oh shit!" But yeah, funny story. I just remember that. But yeah, just pretty much my dad, man. And I didn't actually start until I was like 14. Like that's pretty late to start a sport. I was in the eighth
Mm-hmm.
grade, and so I got good quickly. Like, I started off at a 29 handicap, and in one weekend, it was a long weekend, so 3 rounds. It's probably not going to make any sense to people who don't know golf, but like, I went from a 29 handicap to a 21 handicap. I had 44 Stableford points, 39 Stableford points, then 41 Stableford points. So I obliterated the level I was playing at and took a big jump. And then, yeah, I got down to like, I think 8 within the first 2 years. And then I got down to like around scratch 2 handicap in 3 years, which, to become a pro, you probably need to be off, +3 or 4. But yeah, like I got good quick, which I stopped playing cricket and Australian rules football and just focused on golf.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now that you tell me, because I know you've mentioned how your dad used to play golf before as well. So now I'm putting two and two together. For me personally, you already know this. I was never drawn towards golf mainly because of the time commitment. And we've talked about this so many times. This past summer, we were traveling together and we were in Portugal, and you were trying to convince me to go to the what is it? The course, I guess
Yeah,
you
yeah.
would say. Trying to get the terminology right here before people come for me on the internet. All the golfers come from my head.
It's a
But
golf
you were
field,
trying
bro.
to convince me. Yeah. And yeah, I just wasn't sold, and I haven't been to this point, and I don't think I will moving forward either, because I just feel like, it seems like something that if you start, you would really want to commit to and get great at, and want to constantly be working at and want to constantly be committing your time to. And for me, the time commitment is the biggest holdback. But I can see it. I can see everybody who plays golf gets obsessed with it. I have a lot of friends, or we have mutual acquaintances in business, and all the people that are into golf are pretty much obsessed with it for the most part. They're always golfing. They're always on the course. They're always, it takes up a lot of time. So that obsession scares me. I know myself already. I'm an all or nothing type of guy. So it's either all or nothing. So I'm just going to have to opt for nothing on the golf side of things. But yeah, it's interesting to see you still balance that with business, and work on your business and work on everything that you're working on, but at the same time make the time to go play golf every single week. And I think you go a few times a week, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
I
Do you go a
wish.
few times a week, or how often are you golfing now?
Nah, so probably like once a week. I might go to the driving range once or twice, but I think it's always good to have things outside of business. Like like all of my friends, like I feel like we have more dimensions than just business, right? Like I think if you just talk business 24/7, 365, you're gonna just, I don't know, man. There's more to life than that. Obviously, business is a huge part. But back to like the obsession with golf, I
Mhm.
think the reason why especially why it's getting more and more popular, it's pretty much the only sport that you can just play by yourself and you're versing yourself, right? Like, so no matter if you went out on a Tuesday afternoon by yourself or like a Saturday afternoon with 100 other people in a competition, you're always trying to beat your best score, right? In tennis, it's, you know, cool. I won 6 love against this guy. Arguably, he was shitter than me. But on this course, my best score is 72, right? So I want to go out there and I want to beat that. And so it's like yeah, man, it's so challenging
Hmm.
physically, mentally, um, and yeah, like it's just it's very tangible to know when you're getting better too, right? You can see your scores lower. Like, yeah, I mean, it's probably not the best summary of why I think people are obsessed, but I think yeah, that challenge and trying to get
No, I
better
think
at
that's
something.
great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly why I'm afraid of dabbling in it, because I feel like if I dabble, I'm gonna start to enjoy it, and then I want to get better, and then I want to invest all my time into it, and then it's gonna completely consume what I do. But I agree with you on the point of you need to have things outside of business, and it's the same for me. For me, it's sports, it's mixed martial arts, it's time with family, it's traveling, it's all these things that I have outside of business that I like to occupy my time with as well. I just need to, I guess you could say, taper that and not be spending too much time in those avenues. But I definitely have these things outside of business as well. So I agree. But let's talk about our past trips, since we're on the lifestyle topic, and how this entrepreneurship and business world has given us the opportunity. Really, I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to have that time freedom to take ourselves out of our environments, right, from completely different parts of the world, meet at the halfway points, usually in Europe, and travel and see the world and have all these incredible experiences, usually, quite literally bucket list experiences. And this past summer was pretty much the same thing. We went to Spain, Morocco, and Portugal together, and we saw a lot of beautiful places, beautiful cities, the Sahara Desert. We had incredible experiences, and it's always an amazing thing to look back on those experiences, and then just look back on the fact that we got to create those memories together. And this is a friendship, us two, that started out of business and now has led to what it is today. So what was your favorite part of the trip? I don't know if we actually talked about this or if you told me your favorite takeaway, but now that it's been some time and it's settled in, looking back, what was your favorite part? What were some takeaways from that trip?
Well, I remember the first day we got to Morocco. Like, I was jokingly saying, like, God, we should have just gone to the beach in Greece. Like, I was semi-serious. I could have, at that exact moment, I could have happily taken a flight back, gone to Greece, chilled on the beach, done, what a normal Europe trip is. But Morocco was definitely the highlight because it was so different. It was so out of the comfort zone. And it was like, it was stepping into a new world, which I think, like going to Europe a few times is obviously amazing. Like, you go to those kind of, I don't want to say basic places, but like, the cities, Barcelona, Rome, all that stuff, which is cool. But this kind of ties back to like my whole like philosophy on life is like just doing things that others don't do slash can't do slash aren't willing to do. Right. And I think, oh, everyone's going to fucking Spain. Well, let's go to Morocco. That's even cooler. You know what I mean? Obviously I still like Spain, but yeah, like I I think specifically that camel ride in the Sahara Desert was crazy. Like, not to mention Roche nearly getting eaten alive by, well, and orally getting eaten alive by that rotten camel that was pop the clip up on
One of
here
one of
and
the camels
show everyone that. But
that went crazy. Yeah.
that was insane. But it was so surreal because I never thought that I'd be in the desert and well, in the Sahara Desert specifically. 100 kilometers from ISIS, and you know that for me was pretty insane. How about you? What was your favorite?
Yeah, it was definitely Morocco too, because it was just the most memorable. It was a completely different culture. It was just beautiful. The people were so kind, and the Sahara Desert experience, and really the south of Morocco, was an incredible experience for me. From the matfuna that we tried, the Moroccan pizza, to
Make
that
me
fresh
hungry,
bread. If you remember from that bakery, that was probably the
but I won't
best bread
forget.
we've ever had. Yeah, right out of the oven. That was amazing, and just again to the kindness of the people and traveling through all these cities, and our driver Hisham, who's an amazing man, and I still talk to him to this day. I still message him here and there. He'll update me, he'll send me pictures, so we
So
have that
Pouya.
relationship. And I think again that's one of those lifelong relationships. Yeah. Such a nice guy, and just all the experiences. And like you said, Spain is beautiful, all the countries in Europe are beautiful, and all the different travels that we've done together or apart have their own special places. But when we went to Spain, we went through all the different cities and the scenery and everything else, and that was amazing. And Portugal, the food was amazing, and the coastline and the beaches were beautiful. But Morocco just had that distinct character. It really had character. Every city had its own character. There was a lot to it, and it was just, I think, the complete difference of culture and everything that came with it that I think just made it the most memorable. And the Sahara Desert was just mind blowing. I think it's definitely a bucket list activity for most people. And when you're in the Sahara Desert and all you can see is these sand dunes, and it really opens that perspective. We always talk about perspective, and I think that's where I felt it the most. I remember the night we stayed at the Sahara Desert. The next morning, we were in separate cars, right? If you remember, we were going to the city. We're driving through the sand dunes and going to the city. And I was just kind of zoned out, looking into the sand dunes and just thinking in my head. And our driver, he asked me, he's like, what's wrong today? You're a little quiet. Are you upset or something? I said, no, I'm just in my thoughts because this is amazing. I love the lifestyle that you have, and I'm just thinking about how you wake up every day and this is what you see and this is where you live and this is your lifestyle. And then we wake up, in the Western side of the world, and we have completely different types of lives, and this is going on at the same time. And it just gave me so much perspective. I felt like our lives here are so manufactured, where their lives are so close to nature, right? They're in the sand dunes, they're in the desert, they have fresh food, they have camel milk. We milked a camel there and we drank the milk right
Awesome.
after. So we got that experience as a one-time experience. But they get to do that every single day. So I was telling him that, and he was saying, there's pros and cons to both, types of life. But that to me was the most fascinating. I think that was the most memorable for sure.
Yeah, you don't really get to see that stuff. Like everyone sits at home on a computer screen and sees a news article about a different country or whatever. But until you actually go there and experience it, like it is just like incomprehensible when you're there. Like, and you do get that perspective of like, for me, it was like realizing how blessed we are to go and have those experiences, right? Because for them, they can't just go and book a flight to Canada, book a flight to Australia, and just go and travel and see the scenery there, right? Because their economy, their livelihood, they can't really afford that, right? But we're in a blessed enough position that we can live in an amazing country, right? Have, like a good life, but obviously, get to go and experience those things and appreciate that, but then also appreciate what we have here. I think, I personally wouldn't trade places with them in life wise, but I think understanding and appreciating the way they live, like it's hard to do until you actually go there, right? When we woke up in the Sahara Desert, I'm walking to go and see the sunrise, and then I see all the guys, they're just sleeping outside under the stars, right? And I'm like, these guys are literally sleeping on the floor, wearing these like glamping tents, all nice, and they're just on the ground. It's just normal. It's a different world, that's for sure.
It definitely is. And I think that's where a lot of that perspective comes from, right? We were in Fez, one of the cities. And if you remember, we were playing soccer in the street with a bunch of the kids. And, every night when we get back, they'd be out playing soccer, and we just go out and start playing with them. And they didn't speak a word of English, and it was just fun. We knew a couple soccer players, Moroccan soccer players, so we would say their names and they would all get excited. So it's just perspective, and them growing up like that, and the experiences they have compared to the experiences we have. And I think that perspective provides a lot of puts us in a place of gratitude, and then it makes you want to give back, and when you're there, help out. And yeah, I think it was just a beautiful experience altogether. And it's safe to say we'll be back to Morocco. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely planning on going back sometime in the future. And it's unfortunate that they actually got hit with that earthquake just recently, pretty soon after we left. So hopefully everyone's okay in all the places we went, and yeah, hopefully everybody's safe and recovering, and the aid is there for them. But yeah, it was really sad to hear that. It was unfortunate. Our driver messaged me. I don't know if I told you this actually off air, but he messaged me, and he told me about the road we drove through the Atlas Mountains, and he said, "Remember that drive?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Those roads are gone now, apparently as a result of the
Holy
earthquake."
shit.
And I was like, "Wow." Yeah.
Bro.
That's another perspective shift, right? We were just there. We just had those experiences. And then there's a force of nature, unpredicted, and you have this devastation that it caused. And again, the fact that we just missed it again puts things into perspective. It really makes you think.
It does, man. 100%. 100%. It's crazy to think, like
Yeah.
it's so surreal, like when those things happen so close to being there. You're always like, holy shit, imagine if I was there. But at the same time, something like that could happen in our home city, right? It's just like could have happened in any other place, right? There's so many things like that. But yeah, it is crazy to think, 2 weeks and it could have been a different story.
Yeah. I wanted to recap that because I think it was such an amazing experience that it's worth talking about. And we've had another trip in Greece before, and we have upcoming trips. So I'm sure there'll be more memories to make and a lot more ahead of us. But I always love the traveling because I always love the perspective that it brings. And also, it gives us an opportunity to step away from business. And I don't know how much you do this now that we're back home and, we're involved in our, businesses again, and we're working with our teams and working on goals and Q4 and end of year and back into kind of the rush of things. Um, how did it feel taking yourself out of the business and looking at everything from a bird's eye view, from an overview perspective? Did you get any ideas or any things about the business that you want to change, or any takeaways that maybe everybody watching this can find valuable?
Yeah, big time. For me, it is very hard. Like, I observed myself back home very well when I was overseas, right? I'm like, okay, I wake up, I literally just go straight to the coffee machine, get straight into work. There wasn't a lot of method behind the madness because, I don't think this is a bad thing, but like when I started in business, it's just like sprint, right? Like just get as much done, hustle, 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 hustle. But there becomes like a point where you're like, okay, now I kind of have to be more methodical in, the strategy and like what we're actually going to be working on versus, okay, cool, let's just get to my desk. Oh, I got some emails. Oh, check socials, right? So now like I'm trying to be a lot more intentional with everything that I do. And I'm making some shifts on the back end, which is going to take a bit of time, but like I got a lot more clear on the type of business that I want, how I want the business to run. And, like I guess for me now is like I really want to get this business to the point where like it doesn't like it literally doesn't depend on me in any way. Right. And so I've kind of identified the two key areas that need to be done for that because I am like not involved in the majority of things. Right. But I did realize that I'm a lot in the marketing. Right. I'm responsible for like, coming up with the ad ideas, the creative, sending cold emails, managing all those campaigns and those team members. And then also on the, staffing and recruiting side, getting people to come in and do that. So if I can get people to, the right people for that, then I can really focus on the things that I actually want to build. Because I never sat down and was like, cool, I really want to build Boost Media Agency, right? Like I fell into it and it was a blessing, don't get me wrong, but it was never the end goal. And so, yeah, man, it really just gave me the clarity. Like I've literally got my journal here where I've written all the things down. Like the first day I got back from the trip, I didn't do this last time, but I kind of got the idea from you. It was like, I just sat down, I literally wrote down all my thoughts, all my takeaways from the trip, like these key moments as well that will stick with me forever. Like one moment we're on the beach in Lisbon that last kind of day. I forget which the beach was called, but I was listening
Hmm.
to a podcast. It was
I
on
forget
the
what it was called as well, but I remember which one.
yeah. I was at the beach for a while. I was listening to a podcast, and it was that Brian Johnson guy, the dude who's trying to like reverse his age, drinking blood, all that stuff. And I'd never given that guy the time of day before, right? Because until I saw him on this particular podcast, The Diary of a CEO. And then the way that this guy thought about life and the way that he optimized for certain things in his life, I was like, wow, like it just gave me a new perspective on like, this guy's optimizing for one thing, right? And that is to exist, right? And so he just looks at life, okay, every little thing that I'm going to do is to exist, right? And I'm a big fan of like objectives and key results, right? Like whether it's in business or personal, like even a day-to-day task, right? If you just have this task, but there's a million moving parts, setting a clear objective, then breaking that down to the key results that you need to do to achieve that, it just gives you so much clarity. And so for me, like, yeah, like that little moment that I was there, I'm like, what am I really optimizing for right now? And I never really thought about that. Right. And so, yeah, like I think just to sum it all up, you really get that time to step out of the day to day where, especially if you work from home, my home environment, man, every single place in the house feels like a workspace, right? Because I work on the couch, I'll go on the balcony and work in my office. And so, yeah, I really need to get out of that environment to be able to actually think. And so, yeah, being more methodical is definitely a big one.
Yeah, I remember we talked about all this, and I remember that beach day that you're referring to, and how we were both talking about the big takeaway from that podcast. And I didn't listen to it, but you did, and then we had the conversations afterwards when we were just sitting there. And the big takeaway for both of us was that it's great to have one main objective or to know what you're actually prioritizing for, and then everything else can kind of fall under that umbrella. So in that guy's case, he's optimizing for longevity and for a lifespan, and everything else falls under that. We talked about Elon Musk and how the main goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species categorizes all his businesses, whether it's the boring company with digging tunnels and everything else that they do, whether it's Tesla with just everything that they're doing with the electric cars and helping the environment and whatnot, whether it's SpaceX and everything he's doing there. It's all towards that one big goal. And I remember us talking about how when individuals are clear on their main purpose, that one big goal, that big priority, it really helps because it kind of helps you dial in everything else and really look at what direction you want to go. So I think that's an amazing takeaway. And another thing that we talked about, I don't know if you remember, I'm pretty sure it was right when we were taking the ferry to Morocco from south of Spain to Tangier, north of Morocco. And we were talking about how when we're traveling, where I was telling you that the big thing that I think about is really who I want to become and how I want to evolve myself when I go back home. So I almost look at it as for this next year, what do I want to work on? What areas of my life do I want to prioritize? Who do I want to be? And then I look at those character traits and prioritize and then go back home and work on those essentially. And I think that's a big one for me. And this time around, when I came back again, I got to executing on all of that. So I think it's always really important to do that reflection because we're taking ourselves out of the environment to such a crazy degree that it's a completely blank slate almost. And it really gives you a lot of space and time to think. And I feel like that's a missing piece. I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if you would agree or your thoughts on this, but I feel like too many people are stuck in the day-to-day environments, whether they're business owners, whether they're working 9 to 5, whatever it might be. I feel like they're just in the day-to-day. They're in their homes, like you said, and they have these associations that they've built with the spaces and the environments that they're in, with the people that they speak to every day or that they come across. And everything's just the same. Everything's very routine and monotonous and whatever you want to call it, right? Everything's just the same. And you need to shake things up for your brain to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You need to break patterns. And I think travel does that. Even if it's like a day trip down into the woods or, like a weekend trip to go and see your buddies or something, like it just gives you that time to shift your environment and to, like literally interrupt your own patterns to start thinking differently. Because if you're in the same environment, doing the same things every day, it is actually really challenging to get creative and come up with new ideas. Because if you look at, and it's hard for me to internalize this at the same time, right? But if you look at the greatest kind of minds, in history, like a lot of them spent a lot of time thinking, right? Planning, getting creative. And there's a few, like, I guess, not idols, I would say, but like people like in similar fields to us who kind of preach that and practice that, going for an hour walk a day just to kind of get creative, come up with ideas. And I think it's something that a lot of people miss because I don't disagree with hustle culture. I don't agree with every part of it. I think people take it too much to the other end, like, oh, you just got to work 1 hour a day, which is just, it really is bullshit. Unless you've already built a company, have a really great team, the business is growing without you, you have to fucking work, right? But at the same time, like when you force yourself from sunrise to sunset, you never take a break, it is going to be hard for you to actually kind of break through other barriers that will help you come up with more ideas. Like, I think for me, like if I think I've grown a lot as a person in the last 12 months, like just from doing like things I should have done a long time ago, like hiring that person, right? Hiring multiple, people and employees that I knew I should have hired ages ago. But as soon as I hired them, like, holy shit, like I have so much time on my hands now, right? It's always scary to hire that person. And I'm even giving myself more advice right now because I'm thinking about hiring more and more people. But, as long as you hire the right people, every time it's worth it. You know what I mean? And it's that constant battle of like, like I think when we were talking at one point in Portugal, I was like, I had nearly 100,000, I had like $90,000 in expenses in a month. And I'm thinking like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing that like in revenue in a month. And so it's like, you have to, I mean, for me, like breaking those barriers of like getting comfortable with taking more risks, calculated, obviously, it's definitely grown me a lot. And I think travel has kind of like helped me appreciate that as well of like, one, how it kind of allows you to do that by having those people, but at the same time being like, I'm being a bitch, just fucking do it. You know what I mean? Like when you're 85, you're going to look back and be like, oh, I'm glad I just played really small and just played it safe and did pretty decent, or, fuck yeah, I actually took a chance and like, I made something really cool and I built something, that I'm proud of.
I agree with that philosophy. I think when you're looking back as an old man or an old woman, or you're looking back at your life, I don't think you're ever going to regret all the things that you did or the chances you took on yourself, the risks you took, quote unquote risks, which is really just volatility and short term discomfort, but people categorize it as risk.
Mm.
Whereas risk is really permanent loss. Just that distinction for anybody who's not clear on what risk really is. But I think when you look back at all the chances you took, you're always going to be proud of that. You're always going to be happy with that. But the fact that, you didn't act on a certain thing or you didn't pursue a certain goal or a certain way of life, I think that's going to be a regret. And both of us are the same in that we don't want to have regrets. We don't want to be looking back and regretting not taking those opportunities. That's why we travel a lot. That's why we do what we want to do and we build the lives that we want to build with our businesses. It's because of that. It's because we don't want to come to the end of this thing, because it will end at some point, and regret how we lived it. It's such a crazy concept that people don't think more about, and I feel like we're hyper conscious of that. So that's an interesting thing that we both have in common. But let's talk about the risk factor for a second, because I remember in your business where you didn't have 100K a month in expenses, and you didn't have a team this big or this much overhead, or you weren't taking on this much risk. So what changed for you? What was the click, or what was the moment, or if there was a moment, what allowed you to really want to double down on the business and take risk and take that next leap forward?
I think it was two things. I think it was like getting to a point financially where I felt like, pretty comfortable, if you will, where it's like, okay, like I'm happy just to reinvest into the business because, like I don't have to worry about like rent and stuff for like, several years. So it's like, that is kind of like, it gives you that some sense of security. Because at the same time, like, you have to be calculated with it. You don't want to just be like, okay, let's just hire 10 people and then you don't have enough revenue and then, you're getting dead and all this stuff, right? So that was one part. But secondly, it was like that whole thing. I was like, dude, like, why have you put this off for so long? Like, you hate the task that you're doing that you want to delegate, right? Like, it's going to cost you this amount a month. You're going to have all this time, right? Like, what do you have to lose? Like, it's just, we really have to, like, our brains are just wired to keep us safe, right? They want to avoid danger, and anything that we associate danger with, it's a challenge to do it, which, yeah, like, I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I just remember sitting there being like, okay, I have to change this, because otherwise I'm going to be a year in the future, I'm going to be in a similar position. Like, I was taking 10 plus Zoom calls a day, which, sounds great in theory, but like, it's really not when you're just spending all your time in the business and you can't actually work on it, get creative, do things that you enjoy doing. Because yeah, I learned a lot of sales stuff from you, which, was incredible, but I really kind of knew that to get to the next level, I had to have someone doing that for me. Right.
So we're talking about you scaling your business and the stage that you're in today. So I'm just thinking from the perspective of a small business owner or a new entrepreneur, if they're looking at what's ahead for them and they want to, build a team and they want to get to the revenues that you've gone to, how would you lay out the step-by-step of scaling their business? Or how would you look at it if you're in their shoes and you're a beginner entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I would say definitely at the start, you literally have to spend 80% of your time generating leads, generating income, right? Because without sales, you don't have a business. So whether that's booking meetings, whether that's selling your products, whatever that may be, you just have to do as much of that as humanly possible. Now, as soon as possible, you want to delegate the part of that doesn't require you. So let's say you spent a month and you figured out, cool, if I send this kind of messages on LinkedIn, then I'm going to be able to book a meeting with a person, right? Because most people just spam and send these shitty messages and get no responses for obvious reason. So you want to systematize and create processes around every little thing that you do, right? So LinkedIn outreach, create a process for that. Then hire and train someone to do that for you. So now you've just saved 4 hours of your day, right? So you can focus on the next high leverage thing. From there, it's like, okay, cool. Now I've got 10 clients. I can't service all these clients. I need to hire someone to handle the fulfillment. And now this is going to look different for every business, but it's like just a continual process of removing yourself and putting yourself into a higher leverage thing, right? So you go from doing the lead gen, focusing on the client work, delegating that. Then it's like, cool, we need to start hiring more team members. Now you're on sales. So for me, it was kind of like to the point where I had a lead gen team and I was just all day on sales calls, right? Hired my first sales guy, didn't really work out, but then I found a really good one. And so he's been, in the business for, probably close to 10 months now. And yeah, like you kind of figure out the different, like in terms of an organization chart, right? You got the different departments like sales, marketing, finance, HR, fulfillment. And it's kind of like, okay, you're a small business. You probably don't need a CFO and a finance team, right? Hire a fucking bookkeeper, accountant, whatever. But like look at it as like you need a department head, then you need those people that are kind of, I guess, work underneath them. Sales is a really easy, structure. Like, you have the fucking sales manager at the top. You might have one or two closers, or you might have someone who's closing and a sales manager. Then you want to have lead gen team members who are just pumping that calendar full daily, right? Whether that's cold outbound, calling inbound leads and things like that. So yeah, I know I've rambled here with a lot of different kind of directions, but just figuring
No, that's
out
fine. Yeah.
what your time is really worth and delegating anything. The rule of thumb is if it doesn't absolutely require you, you should delegate it, right? And I always need that reminder too, because I'm like, oh, cool, I'll just go and do this thing. And I'm like, hang on, I've got like probably 5 capable people that can do that. I'm just going to shoot a 1-second, 30-second Loom video and send that to them. And it really is freeing when you have that, right? Because you have these tasks that, they might seem insignificant, but if those 5 tasks add up to like an hour and a half per day, you've not only spent that hour and a half of time, but it's the mental energy that you've actually taken to do that, because you don't have infinite amount of brain power, which is why, you and I both believe in front loading the day, getting, maximizing that. But yeah, like you'll be shocked with how much stuff you don't actually need to do and that you can delegate.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think, for me, that's been especially hard because personally, I think we've had this conversation as well offline. Personally, I'm very much a control freak. I mean, in my day to day life, in my sales career, in my business now, I've always had this trait. And I think it's a real positive trait in a lot of ways. And I'm very conscious of it. And I've consciously doubled down on it. But it can also be a huge setback when you're looking to scale the team and take yourself out of certain roles and delegate responsibility and everything else. So I'm very much aware of that aspect of it. But the reason I say it's a positive thing to be a control freak is because when you want to exert that control over every aspect of your business or every aspect of your life, what that means is you want to control the outcome. What that really means is you want to create a certain outcome and you want to have full control over that. So to me, I've always been a believer that you can control your own reality, you can control your own life, you can control your own business, and you just have to do what it takes to get the results that you want to get. So I've been very much a control freak with a lot of things, and I've always looked at the positive side of that trait. But when you're looking at scaling the team and you're looking at expansion and you're looking at taking yourself out of certain roles, I think it's a good rule of thumb what you said, which is to just think about, how many capable people are on my team that can handle this, and then I can just pass on that responsibility and put my time, energy, focus, attention, resources towards bigger problems, towards next steps in the business, towards scaling the business higher, or whatever else it might be. So I definitely like that you mentioned that and that you highlighted both sides of that.
Yeah. And I think for you, like you can still control the business without doing it yourself, right? You just have a set process and method of doing things, and you ensure you have the people that follow those instructions and get it done. You still control it, but you're just pulling the strings. You have the oversight, right? That's why, like, another thing as you grow a team as well, having end of day reports, both for like sales team, client team, is so key, because you can not only see their activity, but you can also see like the sentiment around their work, how their energy levels have been. And without having to get on a call with every team member each day, you can be like, okay, Rachel submitted her end of day report and she's said she's 4 out of 10 energy 3 days in a row. I might send her a Slack message to see what's going on, if there's something happening, anything I can help. Right. So yeah, like you can still, like I said, control it, but just have the oversight by putting systems in place, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what I do nowadays. I've built out the systems and the processes to take myself out of it, but everything still goes exactly the way that I want it to go. And then you have your team and people in more leadership roles actually, manage that and look over that and make sure that everything gets done. And like you said, the reporting, whether it's qualitative reporting, quantitative reporting, end of day, end of week, end of month, end of quarter, end of year, all that reporting is a lot of really good information to then look back and make the necessary adjustments and get to where you want to get to. So I like that. And I think there's a lot of value there for anybody looking to scale their businesses. And you've obviously done a great job of that. So I think there's a lot of real tangible takeaways there. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs and people, especially at the beginning stages of wanting to scale their business, end up either, taking a wrong turn and not getting the results they want to get, or not being consistent enough with their actions over time to get the results they want to get, or having, external factors, friends, family, external factors in the world, all these things take them off track and not get the results they want in business. And then people call that failure, or people call that, quitting or giving up or whatnot. How would you handle, adversity in business, overcoming challenges in business? Have you had any setbacks that you clearly remember? And what would be your advice to anybody going through ups and downs in their business and not getting to those consistent revenues quite yet? And how would they be able to stay in there and eventually get those results?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. Like, firstly, like if you're genuinely good at what you do, right, then you're not going to have a problem, generating revenue for your business, right? Like if you're the best person in the world at Facebook ads, people are going to want to come and work with you, right? So it's like you have to show people that you're good at it, and you have to be really good at it. Obviously, that takes time, right? And so I think it is one of those things, like people can definitely be discouraged early, right? And like I think I was almost blessed in a way with, I don't want to say like I had really quick success, but like in the second month of business, I was generating really good revenue off the bat because I already kind of had previous experience, right? So I guess the experience that I had as a employee kind of led to my abilities in starting my own business because it was in a similar kind of position, right? And so, yeah, you have to look at it as like, it's going to be hard. Like, it's going to be very difficult. So are you willing to go through 6 months of like eating shit? And so, it's definitely easier for someone who's young, right? If I was 17, 18, living at home with my parents, God, I've got 10 years of living at home ahead of me, right? I can, you know what I mean? Like I'd be mentally ready to live at home till I'm 27. You know what I mean? So I'd be like, until I've made it, I'm happy to live there, right? Now your situation might be different. You might have to go and challenge yourself by moving out and forcing yourself to be under pressure to generate that, income. There's no right or wrong, but yeah, you have to just really understand that it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to do far more than far more than you think it takes to actually succeed, right? People think, yeah, the amount of when I was taking Zoom calls with people, right? The amount of conversations I would have with people is like, oh, I just don't have enough leads. I'm like, okay, well, what do you do to generate leads right now? Oh, I just get a couple of people from referrals. And I'm like, okay, referrals are fantastic, but do you think that's going to sustain you forever? Oh, no. Like, it's crazy to me how many people who've been in business 10 plus years still don't understand like a sales process, right? Obviously, referrals are amazing. They're the best business to get. Like,
I'm here.
You were a referral from Mo when we first worked together, right? But at the same time, it's just not a scalable thing. You're not going to build a business solely off them, right? So you want to create systems with as much leverage as possible, meaning that you have a limited amount of inputs you actually have to do in terms of your own time, but the outputs are just huge. You know what I mean? Like the cold email stuff we've been talking about. Like I could send 10,000 emails tomorrow if I wanted to, right? And so it's like, if you were doing that manually, you're going to be sitting there for days, finding emails, doing this stuff. Like I was joking with my buddy, we're driving to the golf course, and I'm like, what's so funny is right now, like there's emails sending out on my behalf, I have a team member responding to them, and then I have people taking the calls. Like, isn't that just a fucking cool concept? Do you know what I mean? And it might seem unattainable at the start, but it's like you continue to, increase the activity, track the numbers and data, and then get it to the point where it's like, cool, let's hire someone to do this for me, right? Once you get to enough revenue, and then continue to sort of scale it from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the important takeaway from everything that you just said is the initial point, which is if you have a good product or service, you're not going to have a problem, surviving in business and then being able to scale that business. So it really comes down to actually delivering a quality product or service, a product or service that works, that, delivers as promised, that, brings some type of value to the marketplace. And as long as that's in place, all you do then is build the processes and the systems to be able to, like you said, delegate some of those roles and responsibilities, take yourself out of the business, make sure that it's scalable, make sure that it's proven, duplicatable, and then you have this plug and play system like you do now in your business, and the rest is history. But it comes down to that quality product or service, because if that foundational piece is not there, I mean, good luck scaling a terrible product or service. It's just not going to happen, right? Word travels fast, and word of mouth is still very much a thing, especially with social media nowadays. If anything, it's more amplified. So I think that really is the foundational piece. And then it's that experience that they have with your products and services that is the real takeaway for your prospects. So that's really important. And I like that you talked about sales and having these sales processes and leads and everything else being the most important metric or the most important thing to really focus on early. Because again, if you're just a business owner starting out, getting that first, dollar come in, getting that first deal closed. That's the most important thing you're looking forward to. And I think that's what proves out the concept. I was talking to a guy just a couple days ago, actually, and he seemed like a very sharp guy. He seemed like, he's very much set up for success in a lot of ways, but he's been working on his business for quite some time and he doesn't have any sales yet, no revenue yet, right? So that confidence just isn't there. That goes to show me, first of all, the right sales processes and systems are not in place, because there is no way that you shouldn't have any sales or any revenue generated yet. But at the same time, from his perspective, he doesn't have that real confidence built yet, because the concept isn't proven out yet, right? So I think that first sale, that first part of the business is really important.
Yeah, I think
And I'm glad you talked about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think I learned like in kind of a different way, because there's that old philosophy of build it and they will come, right? Which I just think now in particular, it's so flawed, right? Like you should be selling your stuff before it's ready. Obviously being transparent, like, hey, I've got this minimum viable product. I'm looking to bring on 5, beta testers, whatever that may be. It's going to be heavily discounted price. Would be, open to trying it out, because you're not actually going to know if you have a good product or service until people have used it, right? And until you got that dollar in the door, you really don't know if it's in demand, because I think people create these things that they think, oh, I think this is really cool. I'm going to create this really cool, hairbrush or this really cool thing, and no one actually wants it, right? Like, if you can find out what people want, figure out how to go and give it to them, right, and then sell it to them, it's that simple, right? Even people get infatuated with these online businesses, but like, I was even chatting to my mum the other day, and she's like, oh, I want to retire soon. I'm like, why don't you literally just start a gardening business, right? Like, she's in a state that's full of government workers, so it's like the most affluent kind of place. They all got gardens and stuff. So go and knock on a few doors, go and put out some flyers, go and run some Facebook ads, and you could easily make $10,000-$20,000 a month cutting, like, doing gardens, doing lawns. Like, it doesn't have to be some online thing that you think is going to be crazy big. Like, there's always going to be things that people need. Like, one of my friends makes $100,000 plus a month putting gutter guards on roofs, and I'm literally like, who the fuck is paying for gutter guards? You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't sell me them. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, like, point being, there's always shit that people need. You just got to go find out where even a little bit of that demand is and tap into that market.
I love that your mom is talking about retiring, and your idea is to go start knocking doors and start selling door to door. That's your idea of retirement.
Well, nah, I mean,
but,
yeah, obviously not doing that, but like,
no, I get the point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I get the point. And you're absolutely right. There are all kinds of niche businesses that do well, and you don't necessarily need to, build an online business or follow the hot trend or build an e-com store or everything else that is top of mind today to do that. I want to ask you a question. As you were talking, I was just thinking in terms of what you do and all the different businesses that you're exposed to, all the different clients that you work with through your media and PR company. What are some of the common mistakes that you see business owners making, entrepreneurs making, that are, simple mistakes or mistakes that you see over and over again that you would recommend everybody avoid? Are there any common patterns that repeat?
I mean, it really depends on like where they're at, right? Like, I'm not exposed into the nitty gritty of people's businesses, but let's assume that a lot of people here listening are, quite early in their entrepreneurial journey, right? Like, I truly believe that in order for people to actually take the time to speak with you, you have to look like the type of person worth speaking to. You know what I mean? And I'm not into this perceptionist reality bullshit, fake it till you make it. Like, that's all nonsense, but it's just like these minor details, like having a professional looking social media feed, right? Professional looking photos, well branded. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can do it yourself or get, a $5 person on Fiverr to do it for you. But really, like, actually looking like someone that's worth taking the time with. And so obviously there's a bunch of other things you can do with that in terms of creating valuable content, having video content where you're kind of showing your personality and, different kind of forms of value. And then, like, that's why I think what we do has helped, with a lot of people in that front is like, when you're seen, let's say I go onto a stage and, or let's say I get on my rooftop and I'm shouting, like saying, hey, like, I'm the best PR person. Or let's say that, the TV station says, hey, Schenk is the best, right? People will associate you with where they hear the information about you from. So if you leverage third-party things like media, like other people's podcasts, like, it just kind of accelerates that process. So, I mean, yeah, that's one mistake, is really not focusing on how they look, right? That would be one. And then, yeah, we could go into the leads and sales and product stuff all day as
So
well.
it sounds like branding. Yeah, for sure. And that, I think that's a huge part of it, the leads and the sales and all of that. But it sounds to me like it's the branding that is catching your attention, the lack of branding or the lack of social presence or really looking at their brand. And I've been talking about this a lot. We're in the creator economy, right? It's already here. It's not some future thing. It's not, it's not some vague concept. We're already in the creator economy. We see this all the time with different businesses. Me through what I do in the consulting work that I do, you through the work that you do with companies in terms of their media and PR and branding and everything else. You have a brand whether you like it or not. It's just about consciously cultivating that brand. So I definitely know what you're talking about. And I feel like too many entrepreneurs there's still a gap there. They're still not quite doubled down on building their brands and getting their messages out there and thinking to themselves, well, back to what we said earlier, I have a good product and service. So like you said, build it and they will come, as opposed to I have a good product and service. That's one piece. I have, sales systems and processes built out. That's one piece. But then I also need to be promoting and marketing and building the brand and, having a nice storefront, if you want to call it that, on social media. And I think that's a huge missing piece.
Yeah, like if you DM me, within 2 seconds, I've already formed an impression of you, right? People form impressions very quickly. And if that 1-2 seconds isn't like a good first impression, you're going to lose a lot of deals on that. You know what I mean? It's something that's hard to put like a tangible number on, but yeah, you can look at someone's profile for 1 second and be like, okay, this kid has one topless picture in the mirror. He's flexing on a rented Lamborghini. The next one, this isn't worth my time.
There's definitely a lot of those. Speaking about manufactured or fake it till you make it, there's definitely a lot of young kids with Lamborghini pictures on social media.
I'm telling you, the kids
that's
who are
always
18,
an instant red flag.
Yeah, bro, they're 100% in fucking crypto scams, NFT scams, like trading forex scams. Like, if you see an 18-year-old kid flexing shit, 95% of them, I'm telling you, will be some kind of scam business, like fucking drop shipping courses, all this bullshit. Like, do you think they've actually done a business for 5+ years where they could be at the point where they'll have enough experience to get these tens of thousands of results? Like, chances are, statistically speaking, absolutely fucking not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, because for me, if I see someone marketing a Lamborghini, like, I instantly don't trust them. You know what I mean? Like, because they're just flexing it on you. But I think you can actually share stuff like that in like a genuine way, because I actually shared a little story about it, because I was literally sitting there in the hotel and I was looking at these luxury cars because I'm like, cool, I'm in Dubai. One more day. May as well do something really cool. I'm like, oh, the G-Wagons looks really cool. It's, it's only like $700 for the day. Like, it's pretty reasonable. But in my mind, I knew I wanted the Urus. I'm like, that's my dream car. Like, I have that as my background because I want that as my car. And I was like, dude, why are you being such a pussy? Like, it's $1,500, whatever. You're going to have a great day. It's twice as much. But like, even that was a little overcoming that safety in my brain of like, not wanting to spend too much on that. But like, that experience to me was so worth it. But yeah, like in general, if you see someone marketing with their Lamborghini as like, their main thing, huge red flag.
I definitely agree with you. But I think that's also a huge area of opportunity, right? Because if it's such a landscape of fake pictures and faking it till you make it and, all these rented cars or scams out there and everything else, all the negative, and people do look at the negative, and I'm sure you get this. My team and I get this all the time where people would say, we don't know whether, to trust you or not. We don't know who to trust nowadays in the social landscape. But I think all of these downsides, all of the negatives also create so much opportunity for somebody to be genuine, to be real, to build, a real product and service, to put a real face to that brand, to really get in front of prospects and try to help them out, to just be more genuine. And I think that comes across. So in this entire landscape, you can look at the downside and all the negatives and everything else, but I also think you can look at all the opportunity that there is to separate yourself from everybody else. I've always been a fan of that contrarian mindset. Anytime I see everybody running one direction, it's just my gut reaction to turn and run the other way. It's just always been like that since I was a young kid. And I remember somebody that I heard put it this way, and this always stuck with me, and I know I've shared this with you many times: observe the masses, do the opposite. That's the perfect way to put the mindset. Every time I see people running towards a specific trend in business or some hot topic or some specific business model, I already know that I don't want to go that direction. Not just for the reason that it's completely saturated and, just overburdened with different individuals trying to do the exact same thing and attain the same results and go after the same target market, but also for the reason that it usually is an indicator that that's not the right direction to go if everybody's heading that way. So I think that's a great philosophy. I don't know your thoughts on that, but I know for sure we've talked about that saying of observe the masses, do the opposite.
Yeah, 100%. There's a select few cases where, sometimes what the masses do is correct, but in the 99% of cases, yeah, like it's like the metaverse and NFTs. Like, I mean, yeah, dude, like I'll admit, even I bought an NFT because I'm like, oh, this could be something, right? But at the same time, like, I just find it so hard to believe that these things have any value. Even cryptocurrencies, man. Like, there's absolutely, we've talked about fundamentals in investing, right? Like, where are the fundamentals in these things? They're these made up things. And, this guy CoffeeZilla on YouTube exposes so many of them. And it's crazy to see even things like FTX or whatever, that Sam Bankman-Fried was like just a huge scam. Like, and cost people, some people like their life savings. So yeah, like it is so true. Like whenever anything is like too good to be true or everything's running to it, probably best just to stay away. Don't let that FOMO hit you.
Yeah, and I think again, it's such an area of opportunity. If everybody's heading one direction, but you're building in a different direction, and you just know you're playing the long game, I think you can have peace of mind that you're on the right track. That's the way I think about it. I just think about it as everybody's after the short term thing. I want to just go scam some people and buy the Lamborghini and flex with it on social media, or I want to start this business, or I want to do this and that. It's always short term because they want that return right away. They want that instant gratification right away. It's this social media generation, if you want to call it that, right? Which we're a part of as well. But I look at it as if everybody's looking for the short term, just play the long game with everything that I do. So for me, I know I've talked to you about this before as well. It's very hard for me to start new things or new projects or new ventures. I'm very, very, very careful with starting anything because if I start, I need to finish it. Right. So I believe in being a finisher, not a starter, quote unquote. So I commit myself to very few things, very few businesses, very few events, very few relationships in terms of friendships and whatnot. But if I commit myself to something, I like to commit all the way. I don't know what your thoughts are on that philosophy, because I know we differ slightly on that, but I always just think long term. And if you're going to commit to something, think of it as this is something I'm undertaking for the long term.
Yeah, no, I think it's an amazing philosophy. Like the longer time horizon you think, it is just a huge advantage because you're not trying to win tomorrow. It's like your time horizon is just so much longer, right? And I think it is difficult because sometimes thinking long term just doesn't seem feasible in the moment, right? Like if you're sitting there and you got $2 in your bank account and you have no idea what to do, like you're not thinking, okay, yep, I'm going to be set in 10 years type of thing. It's like, I need to eat tomorrow, right? So I think it's not always the person's fault, right? Like, well, it is their fault, but at the same time, like if you let that happen to you, realistically, it's your fault. But these people, they're doing the best that they can, right? With the information they have. And if they're in a situation where, they've inflated their lifestyle or they are flat broke, like they will do things for short-term benefit, which is, why you have to be careful and only work with people who are established, have a reputation. Obviously you can take chance on people if you really, really believe in them, but there's always a risk involved there. But yeah, man, like I'm definitely starting to think more and more long term with the things that I do. But I'm definitely more of like a starter. Like I always get ideas and I want to set up these new campaigns and all this stuff, which definitely helps to an extent. But yeah, like thinking on that long time horizon is shaping the decisions that I'm starting to make now too.
Yeah, and I think there's pros and cons to both sides, right? I like the fact that you execute on things really quickly. I like the fact that you can start multiple different projects or have multiple things on the go. It really helps. But at the same time, if you're not pursuing those things long term, then you're not going to get the results you're looking for. The way I look at it, and don't get me wrong, obviously I believe in making sales right away and getting money in right away and proving out the concept right away. The way that I've realized works for me, at least, is long-term vision, short-term goals. So the vision's long-term and the things that I commit myself to, the projects or the ventures, are always long-term. But when it comes to goals, all my goals are 3, 6, 12 months. I really don't set any goals or targets beyond that because I just want to get to work today. I want to work on these goals, move the needle, check them off, and move on to the next goal in the shortest time span, because that's really how I think you compress time. By writing down some goals, getting after it, making it happen in the shortest time possible, and then moving on to the next chapter, the next goals. That's why when you look back, on yourself from last week or last month, you can't even recognize yourself because you set short-term goals, you got after it, you accomplished those goals, and now you're in a different position. So long-term vision, but short-term goals so you can make things happen. Now, as we start to wrap up this conversation, I want to ask you a couple of things and I want to make sure we get to this. So we're going to have to change the pace here. As you're looking ahead on the landscape of social media or, tools and AI and everything that's happening nowadays in the business world, what do you see that excites you? What do you see that interests you? What areas do you see yourself in your business doubling down on that you're thinking, for the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, I really want to commit to this direction? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, the direction that I really want to shift it is more productizing the business, right? So, like, obviously AI is something super cool and intriguing and fascinating, but like, yeah, like in that reflection and thinking about what kind of business I want to build, like I love the idea of having something productized where it's like a software, like, the software we were chatting about before, where it's like, you get it and you just never want to ever stop paying for it, right? Because like, I mean, with our business model, people will get, 5, 10 media features and, they're like, cool, like I'm set type of thing, right? Like not everyone has the consistent need to have stories going up in the media every month, right? So it's like, from a business model perspective, there's definitely flaws to it. So yeah, in the process of building, like it's not like a crazy software, but we're essentially going to be productizing one part of the business and then focusing on taking on way less clients, but tailoring our whole package to, premium clients where we're focused only on top tier stuff. And then the rest of the bottom stuff is more like, no customer service managers. It's all productized, right? So I guess, yeah, like just coming for me, like nothing crazy, but just creating the business that I kind of want to create, if that makes sense. But yeah, like I really just kind of got clear on how I want it to run. And like an agency is not the be all and end all of business. So it's a great starting point, right? But I think it's the starting point for so many great entrepreneurs. And it's kind of like that launch pad where you build a lot of skills. And I want to start taking those skills into different areas because, like I love what I do, but it's not like my passion. I like building things and I like creating. So I want to be at the point where it's like, I don't ever have to think about making sales, right? All I have to focus on is just creating an amazing product, marketing that, right? And then the rest taking care of itself. So vague answer, but that's the next 12 months.
That's a great answer. You really want to productize the business and continue to scale in the direction that you want to scale and take yourself out of the business and work on everything else that you're passionate about and put your skill set to good use. So I think that's awesome. And there's a question that I always ask everybody that I'm curious to hear your answer because we've had so many conversations about business, about life, about all of this offline. Like we talked about earlier in this podcast, we travel together. We've had so many experiences and memories together. So we've talked a lot about business, about, our stories, our journeys, what we see ahead, the way that we think. But I'm curious to know what your answer is going to be. And we always wrap up the podcast with this question. And that is, knowing everything you know today and being the person you are today, if you could go back to your younger self when you were just starting out and you could give yourself one single piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, you actually are capable of anything you actually want to do. You truly want to do. Like I said at the start, I didn't think that I could do all these things, right? And yeah, just that belief.
I love that. Short and sweet, simple, but profound. I definitely agree with you. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, a lot of individuals in general in every area of life have such limiting beliefs. And it's that doubt, that limiting belief is the biggest killer of dreams, biggest killer of goals. So I love that advice. And I think that's a beautiful place to wrap it up. I don't want to take any more of your time. And I'm fairly certain you're going to be one of very few individuals that we're going to have on the podcast time and time again, over and over again. There's a lot that I want to get into in different topics that I'm sure we will. And I'm excited to have you on over and over again. But as for today's conversation, thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. And this was a great talk. I hope everybody else got as much value of it as I did.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, man, anytime, as I said.